Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melita Harris, and I'm joined with my colleague, Judy Hambrick, and we're going to talk about some of the trends and what's going on in the meeting world and kind of what's to come. Let's get started. I'm sure everyone remember days like this when you had your state meetings and you were in ballrooms and you were out on a lawn or attending an outside event or you were shoulder to shoulder. Sure, we all remember those days. March 2020 came along and something big happened and things changed. Our entire world went through a disruption on how we do business, how we plan our meetings, how we re, uh, plan, think, and everything we knew about the meeting world was essentially disrupted. Due to the pandemic and due to that disruption, we've had to do a lot of adjustments. But acknowledging the disruption that has taken place, the disruption, according to Convene, which is a publication by PCMA, which is the Professional Organization for Meeting Planners, the disruption in the last year in the hospitality industry. When I say hospitality industry, I mean like the service industry, like your restaurants, your hotels. Um, when they did a tally of how much lost revenue for registration fees from organizations and lost revenue in sales for hotels and restaurants, it totaled over $15 billion. Um, Another disruption was also hitting the economy in the same form of lost jobs. In the service industry, back in April and May, the unemployment rate was up to almost 10 million jobs. The disruption of the pandemic forced us to change how we plan and think and operate and even secure our meetings going forward. But out of disruption comes a new beginning. And out of that new beginning, we have virtual and hybrid meetings. And as we leapt from 2020 to 2021, we now have vaccinations that's in place. We now have ways and means of producing meetings um, virtually. And as we think ahead of our next disruption on what we're going to do for hybrid meetings, which we'll also talk about. But as we move into 2021, the ACS Convention and Meetings team has tackled this disruption. And from July 2020 through July 2021, we have produced or touched or managed well over 125 virtual meetings. And that number is growing. How did we do it? We did it a number of ways. We did it through teamwork. We did it we increased our knowledge in sourcing and negotiating vendor contracts. So while we were well versed on hotel contracts, we had to quickly learn, or as everyone loved to use the word pivot, and relearn and rethink how we negotiate contracts. So we had to renegotiate hotel contracts, cancellations, but we also had to learn how to manage what we call virtual vendor contracts, and learn what are the components that will go into sourcing a virtual meeting. You know, can that meeting handle integration with your membership database or your virtual exhibit hall, which Judy's going to talk more on. Not only did we have to understand what those platforms are, we had to actually get out there and know more about them. So we started demoing platforms. And as we found out about different platforms, there's the virtual vendor platforms, which consist of like a Cadmium or CTI or even a Zoom that we're on right now. And Cadmium and CTI are like a step up from Zoom. They have a lot more, you wanted to do a lot more more to your virtual meeting. They're a lot more robust than a Zoom meeting. They're like the step up from there. But on top of those virtual vendor platforms, we also had to learn as we started seeing more and more virtual meetings, virtual engagement platforms. These are platforms that they are virtual platforms, but they do a lot more. And I don't know if anyone has seen or gone to a virtual meeting where you become an avatar, or is the what I call the wow effect, and the green screen and all of that. That's a different type of virtual platform as well. And so understanding what those bells and whistles are, and understanding what our client needs are, both internally and externally, to help get to the bottom line of the ultimate meeting that they wanted to get to. And then we had to create what we call, create and manage what I call production timelines. So in a meeting world, we have what we call our meeting specs. And the meeting specs basically outlines all of the data for a meeting: when a meeting starts, when the break starts, when the food and beverage to be delivered, et cetera, et cetera. But in a virtual world, you don't have those things. So in a virtual world, you actually are creating and writing scripts and managing production timelines: when speakers are expected to be on green, and managing like the timeline for green rooms, and the presentations, and every aspect of a virtual meeting like we're on right now. And the other thing is, and I can't stress this enough, is managing communication with our stakeholders. So along with the staff, we have our vendors and we have our speakers. And so ensuring that everyone is receiving information in a timely manner, and making sure that the communication keeps everyone on the same page was key and critical. Other things that we also did that helped us in this past year on pivoting to virtual meetings is that when we first started doing virtual meetings, we started seeing that, wow, we're doing a lot of content. But there's two reasons why people come to a meeting in what I call the good old days. And that's one, content, and two, networking. And that number two thing, that the reason why people were coming to meeting was missing. We were missing that engagement, that social networking and involvement in a meeting. So we started looking at ways of how we can improve that. And the meetings team has developed what we call a virtual engagement catalog, which includes everything from having suggestions for yoga and virtual yoga cooking classes, to Jeopardy games and things like that you can incorporate into a meeting to encourage and create more of that virtual engagement. The next one definitely is a big one, and I probably should have moved this one higher up on the list, was working with the budget, because depending on what your budget is for a virtual meeting depends on those bells and whistles. Some meetings may have a Zoom budget, so you may not be able to do that avatar, or to be able to do the bells and whistles and things like that. Some meetings have a larger one. So depending on what that is, we definitely sit down with our groups and try to first set that up first. And so these bullets are in no particular order. Other things that we did and we had to quickly learn is virtual logistics. So while on site at a meeting, you have your meeting planner that is making sure that all of the logistics on site is going as scheduled. That same thing needs to happen on a virtual level. And so setting up the virtual meeting, whether it's a Zoom meeting or you're using one of the contracted vendors like a Cadmium, there's setup that must be done as far as the agenda and the speakers and the presentations and things like that. Such things as, virtual logistics consist of who's going to manage the power presentation. Is it going to be the speaker that's going to do it, or is it going to be the staff that's going to do it? And so you want to have that all managed well beforehand, and what we were able to do. And then also certainly recording and editing and things like that. And certainly we had to just continue to increase our knowledge of what's going on in the trends in the industry. Such things as when you are doing virtual meetings and maybe doing recording, making sure that you have such things as waivers, as that you're recording a video or recording a presentation, and certainly just applying your best practices and things like that. So those are just high level, real quick things on some things that we did for the virtual world and virtual meetings. And Judy's going to talk about the exhibits portion.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just like Alita mentioned, we've managed over 100 virtual meetings. I've managed over about 6 or 7 virtual exhibit halls during this time. And I just want to highlight a few ways that we've used the virtual platforms to enhance the meeting experience for the attendees. So the exhibit hall provided a number of things, the virtual exhibit hall. Exhibitors were able to receive extended exposure. And when I say extended exposure, I mean not just during the dates of the meeting, but as long as the virtual platform is live. So for several of our meetings, the platform is up 3, 4, 6, 8 to a year later after the meeting. So attendees could, do CMEs, review some of the presentations they were not able to view, as well as visit those exhibits. So that information is available to them. And we also reached a broader audience. We had a lot of international attendees who normally would not attend the meetings that were able to actually view the sessions and visit the exhibitors. One of the other features of a virtual hall is the real-time return on investment metrics. A lot of the platforms we use provided lead retrieval information where the companies can actually see who visited their booth, who opened up a PDF, who looked at their video, who requested more information. They'll get that real-time return on their investment whenever they click on the report. And that's a feature that most of these virtual platforms offered, which was very, very useful and important to the exhibitor. And then also, we had the networking opportunities. I did offer several games and raffles for several of the clients that I manage. And they're hit or miss. Some of them worked, some of them drew people in, some of them didn't. We gave the exhibitors the option to participate, so they didn't have to. Some of our pharma companies could not participate for their own pharma rules, but we gave them that opportunity, and some of them took it up, some didn't. And the prizes were, gift cards and discounts to their products or services. Some of them it worked well, some of them it didn't. So, but that's still something we should consider and offer, especially if those companies are interested. One of the things I've learned over the last year is that satellite symposiums and product theaters were a big, big plus. I just finished a large meeting and I had 8 companies that held satellite symposiums. And that is a record for me because we normally have it at the meeting, but we just don't have that many companies. But in a virtual world, it works a little better. The exhibitors pre-recorded their presentation, and then they had the opportunity to do live Q&A at the end, which they appreciated and the attendees appreciated too. So, and they got great feedback and great attendance. So the satellite symposiums and product theaters were a very big hit. And the good thing about the satellite symposiums is even though it was during the actual time of the meeting, that presentation is still on demand. It's still on the website and attendees can still view it. So that's another way exhibitors get extended exposure. And then, the satellite symposiums, you can price those, the pricing for that varies. It just depends on your audience and, what companies, your companies, your contact will know their companies better than anyone. So the pricing for those satellite symposiums varies from anywhere from $1,500 to $7,000. And I've even priced one at $10,000 and got 2 companies to do it. So the pricing definitely varies. And then of course, there's the branding and advertising. There's many opportunities for branding, not only on your chapter websites, but on the virtual platform itself. They have their exhibitor ads can go at the top, at the bottom, the scrolling on the left or right. There's many opportunities for advertising on the virtual platform. The logos, must be placed in a non-educational area. Usually it's on the home page or a registration page or information page where there's no educational content. So that is definitely an opportunity. And then client emails, I have several clients who send out like know before you go, information about the meeting before you actually go to the meeting. And that's an opportunity to put, here's the following companies have signed up so far to participate. Just another way for the exhibitors to get exposure to the attendees. And then, of course, the client also could send out emails on behalf of the exhibitors. If a satellite symposia or whatever event that they're having, and they want the client to send out an email specifically for their event, that's another option too that the exhibitors, we can offer the exhibitors. So next slide. And there are many other opportunities. I've had a client who did an actual walk-run challenge. All the attendees were on the honor system. They entered their time. The best times won prizes and bragging rights. And then social events. We've had a number of social events, from poker night to trivia to Jeopardy to karaoke to the paint and pour comedy. I mean, it's just a number of social events that the attendees were participating in, and that I sought sponsors for. And the sponsors pretty much got their name on, if it's paint and pour, maybe somehow or another we were able to get their logo on the painting materials. Or if it's a comedy night, the comedian would thank the sponsor for their support of the comedy night. So it's various ways to engage the attendees and the exhibitors in networking events. And then there's community outreach. For a number of my clients in an in-person meeting, they do community outreach with the attendees, those who arrive at the meeting early, where they could go and maybe do a paint a classroom or do something with food distribution, or maybe even build a playground in the rural area or something like that. So community outreach is doable in a virtual world as well as an in-person world. And a lot of companies are interested in sponsoring those types of events. One other way too to get opportunities is webinars. Most of the companies, the satellite symposiums are typically held at the meeting, but there's companies who want to have a webinar. Maybe they just had a new product line and they want to have a webinar, and it's after the meeting, but they don't want to wait a whole year to reach the attendees. So they can host a webinar maybe quarterly, something that you can charge easily $5,000 to $10,000 for, and you would just publicize it with your chapter members, and the exhibitor would take care of everything else, the posting on their Zoom site or wherever they want to put it. But that's just another opportunity for those companies as well. Some of the things we learned from doing the virtual meetings is that one positive thing is the shelf life of all these opportunities. And again, it depends on how long that platform is live. But most of the platforms that we've worked on, they're live anywhere between three months and a year. And that's an opportunity for those companies to get repeated exposure. So the shelf life is really, really good. The traffic to the symposiums and product theaters was tremendous. Typically an in-person meeting, the exhibitor might get 10, 20 people, but on these virtual symposiums, the lowest one was like 53 people and the highest one was over 100. Now people were in and out, and some, looked at it for, a certain amount of time, some stayed the whole time, but it was very positive, and the exhibitors was very happy with the traffic that they received. One of the challenges is driving people to the exhibit hall in a virtual world. They're on the Zoom channel or the platform all day, attending sessions, listening to speeches, listening to panels, even could possibly even be a speaker. And at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, I understand the last thing you want to do is go visit the exhibit hall. So some of the clients have designated certain times to visit the exhibit hall. Some of them have created these raffles where you have to go to the exhibit hall to actually participate in the raffles, to be entered in the drawing. But driving attendees to the virtual exhibit hall is challenging. We do, and if you got 20 exhibitors, how long really does it take an attendee to visit all 20 booths? It doesn't take them long. But we understand, and by it being virtual and it being live, for months or even up to a year, the attendees still have access and can visit the exhibitors at any time. So that's always a positive way to look at it. Zoom fatigue is real. Again, I was mentioning that earlier, at the end of the day, after seeing all the sessions, I understand family is dinner time, the wife is calling, the husband's calling. So I understand that it's, time to shut it down for the day and hopefully start tomorrow. But it is a challenge, but from the reports that I'm able to see on the various platforms that I've used, even Zoom, the attendees were actually visiting the exhibit hall, the virtual exhibit hall. Maybe not a long time, but they did actually visit it. It's not like an in-person where you can go and chat with the person for a long time. It's not like that. It's, very kind of impersonal, so to speak, but that is a challenge. But the exhibitors still appreciate those attendees who visited their booth, and you can indicate that you've been there in various ways by liking the booth or checking off favorite or requesting information or whatever. So the exhibitors are real grateful for those attendees who actually visit their booths in the virtual world. So those are some of the lessons that we've learned so far.
Thank you, Judy. So as we talked about the disruption of the whole meeting industry, the disruption that took us to virtual meetings, our next disruption is what we call and move into what we call a hybrid meeting. So as the vaccine, as more and more become vaccinated, we must also prepare to move to a world where we're actually starting to meet again. But hey, the genie's out the box. We're not going back to the old world where we will never have any components of a virtual meeting again. So what is a hybrid meeting? Great question. Hybrid meeting is a combination of a live in-person event with a virtual online event. It integrates technology with the traditional event setting or meeting setting. Some examples that of a hybrid meeting include a live audio or video streaming of an event to remote attendees. Another example will be recording a presentation and then presenting it to a live meeting, and then having it available on a virtual platform afterwards. Or the third definition of a hybrid or example of a hybrid meeting is a multi-location, whether you're Chicago, DC, or maybe LA, and you're streaming to audiences in different cities. But as we prepare for hybrid meetings, we also have to take in consideration where we are. We are still in a pandemic. We're coming out of it, but we are still in it. So how do we take all the things that we've learned, but also keep people safe and secure? So with that, here are some things that ACS is doing. One of the things we're doing is we've developed and proposed the ACS Health Security Plan. And with that health security plan is the comprehensive steps outlined during the pre-meeting, on-site, and post-meeting for creating safe and healthy meetings. So basically, it is a outline procedure of all your protocols, the safety protocols you're going to put in place. It also includes your code of conduct. And keep in mind, a hybrid meeting is both a combination of a face-to-face and a virtual meeting that's taking place at the same time. So your code of conduct actually is dual as well. So your code of conduct basically for your hybrid, for your face-to-face individual is a checklist of some sort that's done during registration, basically acknowledging for the attendee to acknowledge that they will comply to all the rules, wearing a mask, social distancing, or whatever that is. But it's also for the virtual audience that basically you will conduct yourself in a professional manner. You will not say derogatory things in a chat and things like that. And then also the health security plan clearly outlines safety protocols that in the event that something happens and someone is sick, and you have protocols that are put in place. So on top of proposing a health security plan, the other thing that's key and critical in moving forward in a hybrid meeting world is communication. And with that communication, you have to, we have a thing where we say if you over communicate and you say it more than enough and people get tired of you hearing it, then you've communicated enough. So during the pre-meeting, even in the planning stages, what the meeting planners are doing is identifying stakeholders within that meeting, whether it's your organization leaders, et cetera, that it's in the event that something happens, you have to have safety measures put in place. Due to HIPAA laws and things like that, you can, if I become sick, you can't send an announcement saying, "Hey, Alita Harris has COVID." But there are protocols, and but there's still communication you still need to put in place. So you need to have something that's scripted that you should probably run by your attorney to make sure that it complies and everything with what you're doing. So we're in the process of doing that. Also, you want to have a detailed information, what I call things to know before you go. Before arriving on site, you want to outline the expectations of the attendees prior to coming on site. Again, that they will wear a mask. In the event that they don't comply, and there are things to know, you want it very clearly stated that if they don't, then they may be asked to leave the meeting if they don't comply with following the protocols. And then during and post meeting, during the meeting, you want to have daily updates. You want to have, if you're going to have a hybrid meeting, and in everything, it really depends. We're coming out of the pandemic. There's things and protocols they have recently with the CDC that's been a little bit laxed up a little bit. So this is totally evolving, and every day we are trying to reshape and look at everything. So it really depends. You may have a 20-person meeting and know that everybody's vaccinated. So maybe you don't need those protocols in place. That's understandable. But maybe now you're having a 500-person meeting and you're not sure because you're having it at a hotel and you're not sure everyone is vaccinated. And I was actually reading a really good article today. It was the Kaiser Family Foundation research data came out, and they said that as of today, close to 40% of the population is not vaccinated. And out of that 40%, 15 won't get vaccinated because they want more data. And then 13% won't get vaccinated at all, and 6% will only get vaccinated if their employers make them. So there is still a large portion of the population that is not vaccinated. And we know about herd immunity. We know that at least 70% of the adult and children in total population have to be vaccinated in order for herd immunity to take place. So having those protocols and communicating those protocols, those safety protocols, wearing masks is still, in my opinion, I think is still something that we should still be enforcing. But again, every meeting is going to be different. But your communication and your health safety protocols that you put in place are key and critical for the success of that meeting. A third thing that we have been doing is, I manage a team of about 9 meeting planners. And we all became what we call PCA certified. So that's a pandemic compliance advisor. And so each meeting has a meeting planner. And also the meeting planner is focused on the logistics of planning that meeting. But when we move to a hybrid, we will have an additional person on the team that would be focused on the health safety protocols put in place. And that's their primary role, to make sure that there's screening checks, to make sure that we have waivers, to make sure that, people are complying to whatever the protocols are at that time and what the local restrictions are. So having that in place, and again, that is as needed, because that may be an additional expense, but it is something to certainly take in consideration as you plan for a hybrid meeting of the future. Then the last thing is, After you've gotten your safety protocols, your communication all in place, you want to also remember as you're planning a hybrid meeting is that you're planning a meeting for two audiences. And you want to make sure that you engage both of your audience, both your virtual and your face-to-face audience. So you want to invest in a virtual platform that that will allow you to have a dual audience, and that may include contracting a production company. You want to make sure that you showcase your live and remote audience. I was at a meeting and they had a camera person that was there, and the camera person actually was showing the people that was in the audience, so those that were virtual could see those in the audience. So it was a two-way communication, and that's very important and effective, because then now everyone feel, even though we're in different locations, I can still see you. I'm more engaged. And then another thing that's really key and critical is also make sure you in your planning process, you include and engage both audience. If you're going to have a breakout, and let's say for your physical audience, you're going to have food and beverage or something planned for that. Well, what do you do for those that's not there? Do they just go on their own and take a 15-20 minute break, whatever, how long that break is? Or do you perhaps have something virtually to engage them, and whatever that is, maybe a breakout room to have a chat or something like that? Or at least, if nothing more, having someone to announce and let the people on that's virtually, let them know what's going on, because they're not physically there. They can't see what's going on in that room. So you want to keep them involved, included, and informed at all times, so they too feel that they're a part of the meeting. So I know Judy and I have said a lot. And at the end of the day, we have learned a lot of things in this last year. So whether you're planning a virtual meeting or whether you start to think about what a hybrid meeting is, in the last year, the Convention and Meetings team at ACS, we have learned a lot, and we hope that we have been able to share some information that will help you have safe, successful, and engaging meetings. Thank you.